The most expensive financial mistake most people make looks completely harmless. It has nothing to do with bad investments, high-interest loans, or even impulsive purchases. It's just one short sentence that a person says over dinner with friends or in a conversation with relatives. "I've saved up about 100,000. At that moment, something happens that almost no one notices, but it instantly changes the entire economy of your future relationships. You think you've simply shared some good news. In reality, you've just moved an invisible boundary in the mind of everyone who heard it. And along with that boundary, their perception of what is normal for you, what is easy for you, and what you can afford has changed. From that moment on, the price of every little thing in your relationships starts to rise. Literally. Most people believe that the main financial risk is spending too much. But the real trap is set much more subtly. The most expensive mistake is announcing to the world that you can afford to spend more. Because as soon as people around you learn that you have a certain level of financial freedom, that level immediately becomes their expectation. And expectation is the most expensive currency in social economics. For decades, advertising, the consumer industry, and social media have been building a system in which wealth is supposed to be visible. They teach you that success must be demonstrated. The new car should be seen, the vacation should be posted, the apartment should speak for you. But no one explains one fundamental thing. Capital grows in silence. It works best when no one knows about it. Imagine a submarine in the ocean. Its real power lies not in its speed or its weapons, but in the fact that it cannot be detected. It can move anywhere, choose any trajectory, and make any decision. But as soon as the submarine surfaces and appears on the radar, it turns into a target. Freedom instantly disappears. The exact same thing happens with capital. Money grows fastest when it is invisible, when it doesn't participate in conversations, doesn't become part of your image, and doesn't turn into a social signal. But the second you name a figure, 100,000, 200,000, or 500,000, you are essentially bringing your submarine to the surface. And that is exactly when the most expensive mistake begins. People think the problem is that others will start asking them for money. That does happen, but it's not even half the problem. What costs much more is a different phenomenon. You start paying yourself, even when no one asks you to, because the image you've created begins to control your behavior. If a person knows you have 100,000 in savings, they can calmly order an inexpensive dinner. But if there are people at the table who also know about those 100,000, the situation changes. Now, ordering a cheap dish starts to seem strange. Now, refusing to pay the shared bill starts to look petty. Now, any display of caution begins to seem out of place. The financial industry rarely talks about this, because the entire modern economy is built on the opposite principle. The more visible your lifestyle, the more money you spend. The more you spend, the better it is for credit cards, advertising, brands, and services. The whole system is interested in you turning your money into a signal. But wealth is not created by signals. Wealth is created by compound interest, and compound interest is the quietest mechanism on the planet. It works slowly, patiently, and almost imperceptibly. And that is exactly why it is so easy to destroy. And that is exactly when the most expensive mistake begins. People think the problem is that others will start asking them for money. That does happen, but it's not even half the problem. What costs far more is a completely different phenomenon. You start paying yourself, even when no one asks you to, because the image you've created begins to control your behavior. If a person knows you have 100,000 in savings, they can calmly order an inexpensive dinner. But if there are people sitting at the table who also know about those 100,000, the situation changes. Now, ordering a cheap dish starts to seem strange. Now, refusing to pay the shared bill starts to look petty. Now any display of caution begins to seem out of place. This is not direct pressure. It's a subtle calibration. Psychologists call it the effect of social norms. People unconsciously adjust their behavior to match the image they've already formed in the group. If someone has positioned themselves as financially successful, others expect them to behave like a successful person. And in the popular imagination, a successful person is someone who spends a little more freely. To understand how this works in practice, imagine two people, Mark and Ilya. Both are 35 years old. Both have stable jobs, roughly the same income, and each has saved about 150,000. Neither of them won the lottery or received an inheritance. Their capital is the result of boring discipline, regular saving, no debts, and years of patience. Mark treats his savings as an achievement that's natural to share. Over dinner, when the conversation turns to investments, he calmly mentions the figure. He's not bragging, he's simply happy. At that moment, nothing happens on the surface. No one is envious, no one asks for money. But in the minds of the people at the table, a new model of reality is quietly forming. Mark is now the guy who has serious money. Ilya does it differently. He continues to behave almost exactly as before. He keeps investing, keeps saving, keeps building his capital. But he doesn't talk about the numbers with anyone except his partner and his financial advisor. When the conversation touches on money, he answers vaguely. I try to save what I can and invest a little. It's growing gradually. He's not lying. He simply doesn't give people a specific number they can latch onto. To those around him, he just looks like a responsible person. Not rich, not poor, just stable. Now let's see how these two small, different decisions affect the next 5 years of their lives. Nothing dramatic happens. There are no major catastrophes, no sudden windfalls. Everything looks like ordinary adult life. But it is precisely in these calm conditions that the difference between a systematic approach and social pressure becomes visible. Mark's decision-making environment gradually begins to change. When his group of friends chooses a restaurant, no one directly says, "Mark, you'll pay." But a soft shift occurs. People start choosing slightly more expensive places because they know it's not a problem for Mark. When the bill arrives, there's a short pause, and Mark ends up picking it up more often. Not because anyone asks him to, but because it feels logical for someone who has money. When the bill arrives, and Mark ends up picking it up more often. When a trip is being discussed, they choose a slightly better hotel. When colleagues at work talk about a new car, Mark starts thinking that his old one looks a bit modest. This isn't pressure, it's calibration. His brain begins to protect his new identity. The guy who's doing well financially. Ilya experiences the opposite dynamic. His friends don't know the numbers, so they can't adjust their expectations. When the group chooses a restaurant, he calmly suggests a cheaper place, and it feels completely natural. When the bill comes, everyone pays for themselves, and no one finds it strange. When the conversation turns to a trip, Ilya can say, "I'll go with a simpler option." And this is perceived as a normal decision. He doesn't have the role of a financially successful person that needs to be constantly confirmed. Now let's look at the next 5 to 10 years. Nothing dramatic happens. There are no major financial catastrophes, no sudden windfalls, just ordinary adult life. But it is precisely in these calm conditions that the real difference appears. Mark starts spending about $400 more per month than before. It's not one big purchase. It's hundreds of small decisions. A slightly more expensive restaurant, a slightly better vacation, a slightly more generous bill, slightly faster tech upgrades. $400 a month is $4,800 a year. If that money were invested at 7% per year for 30 years, it would grow to approximately $580,000. Mark didn't become irresponsible. He still invests, he still saves money, he still thinks about the future. But his financial system has developed a small crack, and compound interest doesn't like cracks. Even small leaks eventually turn into huge amounts. Meanwhile, Ilya continues to live almost unnoticed. His expenses grow more slowly, and his investments keep working without interference. His freedom of choice remains untouched, because no one around him knows what kind of submarine is moving beneath the surface. After 10 years, the difference becomes noticeable. Mark has accumulated about 800,000. That's a good amount. Most people never get anywhere close to financial independence. But his capital is tightly tied to his current income level. If Mark wants to sharply reduce his workload, take a break, or try a new project with a lower salary, he will have to rethink the entire lifestyle that has become the norm for his social circle over the years. Ilya's capital reaches approximately 1.1 million. The $300,000 difference didn't come from a higher salary, successful deals, or better investment choices. It came from just one factor: the level of financial visibility. But the real difference isn't in the numbers, it's in the opportunities. During the same period, Ilya is offered a new job in a small project. The salary there is almost half of what he currently earns, but the work is much more interesting, the schedule is freer, and the growth potential is significantly higher. Most people wouldn't even consider such an offer because their lifestyle requires a certain level of income. Ilya can afford to make that choice. His submarine has been moving deep underwater all this time. His capital never became part of the social system of expectations, and that is what real wealth truly is. Not an expensive car, and not an apartment that impresses guests, but the ability to choose. The ability to say yes to what really matters and no to what drains your energy. And almost always, true freedom of choice belongs not to those who look the richest, but to those who stayed financially invisible the longest. Modern economy is deliberately designed to push you in the opposite direction. Social media algorithms reward the display of success. Brands sell not just products, but status. Social platforms turn every purchase into a public statement about your position. This entire huge system operates on one simple but very effective principle. The more visible your lifestyle, the more money you spend. But compound interest hates noise. It loves silence, time, and iron discipline. Submarine fleet engineers have an important term: acoustic signature. It's the unique noise by which a submarine can be detected even from a great distance. All modern technologies are aimed not at making the submarine faster or more powerful, but at making it as quiet as possible. Because in the ocean, silence means survival. Silence means freedom of maneuver. Silence is the real strategic advantage. The exact same thing happens with your capital. Every conversation about income, every photo of a new purchase, every mention of your savings creates your financial signature. The louder this signal is, the stronger the expectations of others come back to you in the form of hidden social pressure and invisible expenses. That's why financial silence is not paranoia and not a matter of secretive personality. It is a conscious, powerful strategy. A strategy for preserving freedom. A strategy that allows your capital to grow without unnecessary resistance from society. A strategy that protects compound interest from thousands of small, almost imperceptible leaks that gradually destroy future wealth. If from this entire long conversation you take away only one thought, let it be this one. Money grows fastest when the fewest people know about it. Because the true purpose of capital is not to impress friends, relatives, and followers. The true purpose of capital is to give you a life in which the right to choose finally belongs only to you, and not to your social roles and other people's expectations. If you really want to build such a system, start with the most important and at the same time the simplest step. Learn to maintain financial silence. Don't rush to talk about your savings, successes, and investments. Let your capital remain that very submarine that moves calmly deep beneath the surface, where no one can see it or disturb it. Subscribe to the channel not just for another video, but as a personal reminder to yourself. Capital is not a game of status and not a way to look successful. It is a powerful tool of real freedom. And real freedom, just like a powerful submarine in a vast ocean, works best when it remains deep underwater, far away from other people's radars and expectations. Thank you for watching this video until the end. If it made you think about how you talk about your finances with others, give it a like and share it with those who might also find it useful. See you soon.